AITA for rejecting my ex who eloped on vacation, only to come crawling back 3 years later? The smell of stale coffee and the low hum of the server farm was the daily soundtrack to my life. That combination of sounds had become my normal. It was a Wednesday, around 10 at night, and I, Oscar, was still at the office, just like most nights. I had been pulling 12-hour days for 4 weeks straight to close out a massive project, a systems migration that, if it went well, would land me a substantial bonus. That money, in truth, was already earmarked. It was going to fund the dream vacation for my girlfriend, Ashley. We had been together for 7 years. 7 years of building a life, or so I had believed. My phone buzzed on the desk, its screen illuminating the stack of documents in front of me. It was a video call from her. I felt my heart pick up its pace, the way it always did when her name flashed on the screen. She was traveling through Europe, Paris, Rome, or maybe she was on the coast by now. I was footing most of the bills, but her itinerary was so fluid that I could only keep up through her social media posts. I swiped to answer, trying to muster a smile. Oscar, my love. The connection was surprisingly crisp. Ashley appeared on the screen, though she was not in a charming cafe or on a sandy beach. She was standing on the balcony of a hotel room that looked astoundingly expensive. Behind her, the sunset painted the sky in shades of purple and orange. She looked radiant, even more beautiful than I remembered. She was wearing a blue silk dress, her hair down and falling elegantly over her shoulders. "Hey, Ashley," I said, my voice a bit rough from exhaustion. I rubbed my eyes. "You look amazing. How's everything going?" She let out a light laugh, like the chime of small bells. But there was a strange glint in her eyes that I, in that moment, mistook for the pure thrill of her trip. "Oh, Oscar, something absolutely magical happened. You are not going to believe it." "Try me," I replied, leaning back in my chair with a smile. I figured maybe she had gotten a free room upgrade or met some minor celebrity. "I met someone," she said then, her voice dropping as if sharing a secret. My smile froze. "Someone? Like a tour guide or something?" "No, Oscar. His name is Marco. He's incredible. He comes from a very important family. Apparently, they own half of Europe." An uncomfortable chill started to creep up my spine. "Ashley, what are you talking about?" She took a deep breath. Her smile was so wide it almost looked strained. "I got married, Oscar." The room stopped spinning. The hum of the servers faded into silence. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Maybe it was the stress, the lack of sleep. "What? I got married this afternoon," she repeated. "It was a spontaneous ceremony on a cliffside. Oscar, it was so romantic. Marco just swept me off my feet. He really knows how to live." "Ashley," I said, and my own voice sounded foreign and flat to me. "We've been together for 7 years." I know, she replied quickly, having the audacity to look slightly remorseful, as if she had made a minor gaffe, not detonated my entire life. "But this is different, Oscar. This is real. We were in a rut. You were always working. I deserved something like this. I deserved to be happy." "A rut?" I was not in a rut. I was building. I was trying to build the life she always described. A bigger house, new cars, trips that I could rarely enjoy because I was too busy paying for them. I took a slow breath. "Where are you?" My voice came out unnervingly calm. "We're at a 5-star resort on the Amalfi Coast," she said with a gust of enthusiasm. "You should see this place. Marco booked everything. It's unbelievable." I did not let her finish. "Enjoy it," I said. "Oscar, are you okay? Don't be mad." I knew this would be a shock, but I ended the call. I stared at the dark screen of my phone for several minutes, maybe 5, maybe 15. The office was dead silent. Then, I slowly turned back to my computer. My heart felt strangely quiet. I opened a new tab in my browser and logged into my bank account. The joint savings account held nearly all of my money. It was the fund for the down payment on the house Ashley wanted. Transfer funds. Source account. Joint savings, Oscar and Ashley. Destination account. Personal checking, Oscar. Amount, all. Confirm. Click. I opened another tab. Platinum credit card. Primary card holder, Oscar Flores. Authorized user, Ashley Martinez. Manage cards. Cancel card. Reason, lost/stolen. The description, I thought, fit the situation quite well. Confirm. Next, I opened my cell phone plan. Line 1, Oscar Flores. Line 2, Ashley Martinez. Manage lines. Suspend line 2. Confirm. Then I blocked her number from my phone, blocked her on Instagram, blocked her on Facebook, blocked her email. I stood up, grabbed my jacket and briefcase, turned off the office lights, and walked down the empty hallway. I swiped my key card to exit the building and stepped into the elevator. As it descended, I noticed something odd. I felt no sadness, no rage, only a cold, almost unsettling calm. I had just executed the cleanest break of my life. But when I got to the apartment we shared, everything changed. I opened the door, and her scent was still there. That sweet, expensive perfume. Her shoes were by the entryway. Her silk robe was hanging on the coat rack. For the first time in 7 years, I understood just how much space a person's absence could take up. I walked into the bedroom. Half of her closet was empty. She had taken her best clothes for the trip, but so much was left behind. Old t-shirts she slept in, worn-out jeans, and the dress she wore on our first date. That's when the anger hit me, a deep, painful rage. I grabbed the framed photo from our nightstand. It was from a trip to the Bahamas the year before. I looked pale and tired, but smiling. She was tan and gorgeous, a cocktail in her hand. I hurled it against the wall. Then I opened her closet and started ripping clothes from their hangers. For hours, I systematically destroyed every trace of her in that apartment. When I was done, I was sweating and panting. The place looked like it had been ransacked. I collapsed onto the living room floor, surrounded by stuffing from the cushions and shattered glass, and I cried. But I did not cry for her. I cried for the fool I had been, for the man who worked himself to exhaustion for someone who traded him in the second a shinier, wealthier model came along. I cried for myself. 7 lost years. The next 8 months were a living hell. I moved out shortly after. I could not stand the echoing silence of that apartment. I found a smaller, loft-style place closer to the office. It was simple, with exposed brick walls, visible pipes, and big windows that looked out over the city. I buried myself in work again, but this time it was different. I was not working for a bonus, or a house, or for vacations anymore. I was working because it was the only thing I knew how to do. My colleague Daniel, a quiet, lanky guy with more common sense than me, had known me since college. One evening, he tried to stage an intervention. "Oscar, you need to take a break," he told me, finding me still in the office close to midnight. "What that woman did to you was terrible, but you can't destroy yourself over it." "I'm not destroying myself, Daniel," I replied, my eyes fixed on my monitor. "I'm just working." "No, you're burning out," he said seriously. "The new project is already launched." "And for what?" he asked. "To buy another expensive watch you'll never have time to look at." I looked up. It stung to hear it, but deep down, I knew he was right. I had become a highly efficient machine for making money, and a deeply miserable person. So what am I supposed to do? I shot back. "Get out there, trust someone again?" "No thanks. I already know how that story ends." "It ends that way because you made a bad choice," he said. "You picked someone superficial with an angel's face. They're not all like that." I just shrugged and turned back to my screen, but his words echoed in my head. Over time, the sharp pain dulled into a cold cynicism. On the upside, I became very successful. Without the financial black hole that Ashley represented, my savings grew rapidly. I invested in a few ventures. I even bought myself the sports car she had always said was too flashy. I started going to the gym, not to look good, but because I needed to vent my anger on something physical. I lost 20 pounds, got a new haircut, and started wearing well-tailored suits instead of the baggy clothes I used to live in. People started to look at me differently, women included, but every time I caught their glance, all I saw was calculation. What can this guy do for me? Almost a year had passed since that call. One day, I was in a planning meeting for a new corporate campus. We were reviewing proposals from several architecture firms. "The final proposal is from Gomez Architects," the project manager announced. "The lead architect, Maya Gomez, is here to present it." The door opened, and she walked in. It was not a movie moment. There was no slow motion, no dramatic music. Maya just exuded a focused, almost electric energy. She was wearing black pants, work boots, and a crisp white button-down shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, a few strands escaping as if she had been hunched over blueprints just moments before. When she began to speak, her voice was clear and confident. "Gentlemen, your current proposal is inefficient. No pleasantries, No beating around the bush. You're thinking in terms of cubicles. You're wasting natural light. You're designing a hive when you could be creating an ecosystem. She laid out her schematics and digital models. Her work was brilliant. It was not just an aesthetic pitch. It was logical, functional, and deeply intelligent. I watched as she calmly and methodically dismantled the multi-million-dollar proposal the board had been favoring, using solid arguments. Daniel was captivated. So was I? We're hiring her, I said the moment she left the room. My role on the project meant we had to interact. I was overseeing the division that would occupy the new building, so we started having weekly meetings. Slowly, I began to learn things about Maya Gomez. I learned that she got to the office before I did and left after. I learned her coffee was as strong as mine. I learned she chewed on her lower lip when she was concentrating on a difficult problem. I also learned she was divorced. My ex-husband thought architecture was a cute hobby. She told me one day while we were on the construction site, both wearing hard hats. Right up until I started making more money than him. She shrugged. He couldn't handle not being the center of the universe. He ended up with his 22-year-old assistant. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. I saw the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, but also an almost metallic strength in her posture. I'm sorry, I said. She shook her head gently. Don't be. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was like dropping 180 pounds of dead weight. I laughed. A real laugh, not the bitter, hollow sound that had become my habit. She looked at me and smiled. It was a small, quick smile, but it was completely genuine. Over time, our meetings began to drift from work-related topics. We would start by discussing building materials and end up talking about music. We would review project timelines and end up debating books. I discovered that Maya was sarcastic, fiercely intelligent, and surprisingly kind. One Thursday evening, we were the last two left in the office, a common occurrence. Let me buy you dinner, I said suddenly, surprising even myself. As a thank you for saving this project. She studied me for a long moment, analyzing me. There was no flirtation in her gaze, just assessment. All right, Oscar, she said finally. But nothing fancy. I know a hole-in-the-wall taco joint you're going to love. We ended up in a tiny place, sitting on plastic stools under fluorescent lights, eating some of the best tacos in the city. That night, we talked about everything except work. We talked about our families, our mistakes, and the difficulty of starting over. She told me how she had to rebuild her firm after her ex-husband tried to poach her clients in the divorce. I told her about Ashley. I left out the part about canceling the cards and the bank account. I just told her about the call, the betrayal, and the emptiness that followed. Maya did not offer platitudes like, I'm so sorry, or that's terrible. She just listened, her eyes holding a quiet understanding that completely disarmed me. Pain is a bad architect, Oscar, she said softly, wiping her hands on a napkin. It makes you build walls where you should be building bridges. When I dropped her off at her apartment that night, a simple, elegant building she had designed herself, I did not try to kiss her. I just thanked her for dinner. Thank you, she replied. Good night, Oscar. As I drove home, I realized something. She was the first woman I had spent time with in a year who did not make me feel like a walking bank account or a prize to be won. With her, I just felt like a person. Our relationship grew slowly, like a well-designed building rising one story at a time. It was founded on something I had forgotten existed, mutual respect. First it was tacos, then actual dinners, then long walks in the park after work. I discovered that when she found something truly funny, her laugh was loud and infectious. I also discovered something far more important. Maya had a 7-year-old son named Leo from her previous marriage. Meeting Leo was the real turning point. Maya invited me to a barbecue in her small backyard one Saturday. I arrived feeling nervous, unsure of how I fit into this part of her world. Leo wore glasses and had an intense curiosity in his eyes. Instead of grilling me with questions as I had expected, he simply asked if I knew how rocket engines worked. 3 hours later, we were in the yard launching a model rocket made from a soda bottle, vinegar, and baking soda. When we finally launched it and it soared over the fence, I looked up and saw Maya watching us from the kitchen door. She was wearing a soft smile that, for some reason, felt like a punch to the chest. That night, after Leo was in bed, we sat on her couch in a comfortable silence. He likes you, Maya said. I like him too, I replied. He's definitely smarter than I am. She chuckled. Yeah, probably. I turned to look at her. The warm lamplight illuminated the faint lines around her eyes, the marks of a life lived with laughter and concentration, and I found them more beautiful than anything I had ever seen. I leaned in and kissed her. It was not a passionate, dramatic kiss. It was quiet. It felt like coming home. It was solid, real, and sincere. When we parted, Maya rested her forehead against mine. I was afraid of this, she whispered. Me too, I admitted. And honestly, I still am. Good, she replied. That means it matters. Life with Maya was normal. And by normal, I mean it was wonderful. We cooked together. We argued over which movie to watch on Friday nights. I helped Leo with his science projects and went to his soccer games. She came to my product launches and asked questions so insightful they always impressed my colleagues. Most importantly, she did not need me. She chose me. She had her own thriving career, her own life. If I bought her a gift, she would return the gesture with something equally thoughtful. Our relationship was not a transaction. It was a partnership. The new corporate campus was finally completed. It was a massive success, winning several architectural awards. My career continued to advance, and Maya's firm began to take on major national projects. Eventually, we decided to move in together. We designed and built our own house, a place filled with natural light, with books on every surface and architectural drawings spread across the dining room table. 3 years had passed since that fateful call. One Sunday afternoon, I was in the backyard grilling burgers. The smell of charcoal filled the air. Maya was lounging on a blanket, reading a book. Leo was trying to teach our golden retriever how to fetch. Then, the doorbell rang. I'll get it, I called out to Maya. I set down the spatula and walked to the front of the house. I opened the door, and my world stopped again, but this time for entirely different reasons. It was Ashley, or at least, it was a version of her I barely recognized. The radiant woman from the hotel balcony was gone. In her place stood someone exhausted and broken. She was pale and significantly thinner than I remembered. Her once perfect blonde hair was now dull and badly dyed, with dark roots showing. She was wearing worn-out jeans and a t-shirt that had once been expensive but was now faded. Her eyes, once so bright, were sunken and filled with a desperate light. She was holding a battered suitcase. "Oscar," she whispered, her voice cracking. To my surprise, I felt neither anger nor pity. I felt nothing. It was like looking at a stranger. "Ashley," I said, my tone flat. "How did you find this address?" "I asked around at your old company," she said. "I had to practically beg the receptionist to tell me where you lived now." Her eyes darted past my shoulder, taking in the warm light and the family photos on the entryway wall. Her face tightened. "Oscar, please. I made a terrible mistake." Just then, I heard Maya's voice from down the hall. "Honey, who is it?" She appeared behind me, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her reading glasses perched on her head. She glanced at Ashley, then at me, and her intelligent eyes understood the entire situation in an instant. Ashley's gaze locked onto Maya, her expression shifting to disbelief, then to pure venom. "So this is it," she spat. "You replaced me." I did not answer, instead taking a half step forward, instinctively positioning myself between them. I looked directly at her. "What do you want, Ashley?" Tears started to well in her eyes. "He left me, Oscar. Marco was a con artist. It was all a lie. His family was broke. He was drowning in debt." A sob escaped her. "He married me because he thought you were my safety net, that I could get access to your money." The irony was so thick, it was almost laughable. "When you canceled the cards, he became furious," she continued. "He left me. Ran off with some Spanish heiress, a real one this time." She took a ragged breath. "He took everything. My passport, the little cash I had. I had to sell the watch you gave me just to afford a plane ticket home." She looked down at the ground. "I've been staying in a shelter for the last 4 days." She reached a trembling hand toward my arm. "Oscar, please. I was a fool. I was blinded by shiny things, but I always loved you. Deep down, it was always you." I stepped back, avoiding her touch. "No," I said calmly. The serenity in my voice seemed to frighten her more than any shout could. "You never loved me. You loved what I could provide. And the second someone came along with a better offer, you sold out." I held her gaze. 7 years meant nothing to you. So why should they mean anything to me now? Her desperation curdled into rage. The real Ashley was coming out. And you traded me for her? She shrieked, pointing at Maya. For a single mother with a kid? Her voice was shaking. I gave you my youth, my best years. You owe me. You can't just leave me on the street. Before I could respond, Maya took a step forward. She did not look angry. She looked bored. Oscar, she said calmly, I'm going to take Leo inside. It's getting a little chilly out here. She gave my arm a gentle squeeze and turned away. Her dignity was an armor Ashley's bitter words could not penetrate. I watched her go, then turned back to Ashley, Maya's composure strengthening my own resolve. She, I said quietly, gesturing back toward the house, is 10 times the woman you could ever dream of being. Ashley opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. She builds things, Ashley. You only know how to consume. Her face twisted in a mask of despair. You can't do this to me. I'm ruined. I have nowhere else to go. That was your choice, I replied. You made it 3 years ago on a cliff in Italy. I pointed toward the street. Now, please get off my property. Oscar, please. I closed the door. The solid click of the deadbolt was a sound of absolute finality. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood. My heart was pounding, not from love or sadness, but from the adrenaline of closing a chapter for good. From outside, I heard a muffled sob, then a single, weak knock on the door. Then, silence. Maya appeared in the hallway. She did not ask what happened. She did not ask if I was okay. She simply walked up to me, placed her hands on my chest, and looked me in the eyes. The burgers are burning, she said softly. I laughed. A short, sharp, liberating laugh. I wrapped my arms around her and held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair. It was over. My story with Ashley was well and truly over. Her story, however, continued, though it had nothing more to do with me. I never saw her again, but a few weeks later, Daniel told me what he had heard. After being turned away from my door, Ashley had tried to reconnect with her old social circle, the friends she had accumulated through status and appearance. It was then she discovered a harsh truth. Friendships built on image shatter the moment the image does. No one returned her calls. She tried contacting a few men from her past, but it was too late. The story of her spectacular fall from grace had spread like wildfire. The sham marriage to a con man, the abandonment in Europe, the penniless return, the gossip tore through the very circles she had worked so hard to belong to. To them, Ashley was now damaged goods. But the truth was that no one had done this to her. She, herself, step by step, had built her own ruin. Comment. I know this story touches on some really painful experiences. Sometimes, the most powerful act of self-love is drawing a firm line in the sand. It is a reminder that setting boundaries is not cruel. Rather, it is necessary for your own well-being. Healing from that kind of hurt takes time, and it often looks messy. We see how every choice, good or bad, builds the foundation of the life we end up living. It also shows the incredible difference it makes when you find a partner who builds with you instead of just taking from you. Notice how the real victory was not about revenge, but about choosing and protecting his peace. Being kind to others is important, but being kind to your future self by making wise choices today is a different level of care. I hope this story reminds you that you have the strength to close old doors and build new, beautiful rooms for your life. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.